Well, so much has been made of the reporting done in the Murdoch trial in small town Walterboro, South Carolina. A lot of podcasters out there pontificating and Fitz News covering stories. So, how important is it to be first and how important is it to be ethical? Well, my co author, Mike Petchenik, delved into that in our book, Trial Watchers. And Mike, what did you find, I suppose, as you did some research about what it's like on the landscape for reporters covering trials?
Yeah, so I write about this in some cases from my perspective. I was a TV reporter for more than 20 years and found myself in a lot of situations where I had to rely on my ethical and moral compass in order to report the story correctly and to give the victims and their families dignity. So I highlight a couple of instances where I found myself in those situations and had to really do a gut check on how I was reporting the story. But in this chapter, I interview a former college professor of mine from the University of Missouri who has gone on to an illustrious career in journalism and journalism academia, who's written several books about this topic. And he talks about the need for reporters to make sure they're putting things into context, to make sure that they aren't sensationalizing the story. I also interviewed a longtime beat reporter at the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, who's now doing some freelance work for the New York Times on the Trump trial. And he talks about having to come across these ethical issues in his daily work and a lot of the considerations he had to take.
Interesting. And earlier in our book, Trial Watchers, I got to look at Fitz News, which has been lauded as breaking many stories related to the Murdoch trial. And I put up the standards of SPJ, the Society of Professional Journalists, with some of the ways that they cover it. And it is difficult, isn't it, Mike, when you're trying to be first, to be, sometimes it's not easy to be cautious.
Yeah, I mean, I always had the mantra in my own personal work that I would rather get scooped by somebody else who got the story wrong than get out there first and be wrong or cause issues for somebody. But unfortunately, that's not the way of the world in a lot of cases. And there is a sort of a race to the bottom, if you will. Some of these publications that want to get the story out that don't fact check, they don't bother to seek the other side of the story. And that's a real concern.
And journalism's a good part of our book. We even talked to a gonzo journalist who goes around and he has a YouTube channel and he goes to all the trials across the country. He's an ex-con himself, and he really tries to share what's going on at these trials and also looking through various filings in the court. And all of this is found in our book, Trial Watchers, which will be out shortly. And you can go to trialwatchers.com to pre-order it. And Mike, as always, thanks so much. It was a pleasure working on the book with you.
Likewise. Thank you.